Bienvenido al podcast de cosas más aterradoras.
And as you may have guessed from the introduction, episode 186 is Spanish language horror. I am Ariba. I don't know. Hola. I am Liz Williams, and I'm joined with
Eric Lee.
Making weird sounds. And Mike Campbell not
Spanish
making weird sounds.
Sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Neither does Eric. Neither does Mike.
No,
I took 2 full years of Spanish in college, 4 years in high school, and man, I have a hard time dredging up a lot of those words and conjugations and everything else in between. It's tough, but
too long.
It is a beautiful language.
It is.
It is a
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful language.
I've been to Mexico once.
Okay.
And I
Same.
speak a smattering of Italian, and so I mush my Latin languages together and depend on my niece when I'm traveling. So
Yeah, there you go.
I've been to Mexico, but I'm going to Spain over Christmas, so maybe I'll pick up some phrases.
So we all had a slightly different take, or maybe I had a slightly different take.
one of us wasn't paying
Mike
attention.
did.
One of us was not like the others. I thought the assignment was we were only talking about films from the country of Spain. You guys took it slightly differently and broadened out to the wider world out there and looked at Spanish language horror films in total. Because there are a lot of Spanish language films. And here's the thing that's interesting about the Spanish films just from Spain is A, there's not a lot, and B, they don't have, I will say, for those interested in researching more about Spanish films from Spain, there's not a lot, and they don't have a super rich history. There's some
I have 3.
there's some great films, but Spain doesn't have sort of a wide history in the world of horror.
Yeah, no, it's. I
would
think you
agree.
will see after 2000, really, that's when you started seeing a number of the film, like some of the bigger films, Wreck,
Yeah,
right, begin to break
Wreck
out.
was
Orphanage.
Wreck is now 20 years old.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Yeah.
Rick is graduating from college. I can't take it.
And I'm not going to be talking about Wreck, but I did watch Wreck 1, Wreck 2, Wreck 3, and Wreck 4.
wow. All right,
Wow.
so
I
ready
didn't
for
know there
your-
were
I
that
watched
many.
them all. We could do a whole episode on Wreck if you want. All great films, all wonderful, all silly. The first one is still the best.
Yeah, 100%. So, Mike, it's funny you should say that. So, even though we said Spanish language, all of mine actually are from Spain. And I did not realize until I was compiling like my years and writers and directors, mine are all from 2022. So,
Ooh,
you're right. Not
interesting.
super rich history since these are brand spanking new films.
Sweet.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, Eric, did you see any tropes or trends with regard to Spanish language films that would differentiate them from, say, American films or French films?
Locations, of course.
Yeah,
So that
sure.
Like I've got 2 horror comedies, which are broad, and they take full advantage of their beautiful settings.
Sure.
I have also a dour Argentinian movie.
Okay.
And it's
We like dour.
Patagonian horror. I think Patagonian horror is kind of like Scandinavian horror,
Ooh.
right? It's
Yeah.
I didn't know
like
there was
windswept-
such a
windswept plains.
subgenre.
Oh, we've talked plenty about
Patagonian horror.
Argentina and Chile, right?
Okay.
Uruguay.
Okay. Maybe
So
we'll have to do South American horror next time.
Well, this was your opportunity, but we might get around to it.
You
in
blew
the
it,
future.
Mike. No.
So yeah, I don't know. I think unlike say French extremism, I don't know if there has been a anything that you would define Spanish horror or Spanish language horror to separate it. Certainly the cultures, whether you're doing something like, since you guys are all doing Spanish movies and I'm not, so there's some stuff out of, like Mexico surprisingly doesn't have a particularly strong horror bent, but you have Tigers Are Not Afraid and you have Guillermo del Toro, right? A lot of his work. But where you look at French and you go the new French extremism or Italian Giallo or Scandinavian sort of the desolate sort of cold. They embody their cultures,
Right.
And I think that if perhaps tying into Catholicism, and there's a lot of nun horror out of Spain, I believe.
Right.
Like Veronika and Sister Muerte, which just came out, which is out of Spain. I think that might be a connection. But as to your point, there's not a ton of Spanish horror out there, and I wonder if it's because of sort of the government systems and how the arts were through
Possibly,
it's very conservative post-war period that you weren't that you couldn't release a lot of artistic stuff because it was an oppressive government and until the 80s. Right.
I would say the one qualifier across all of the Spanish films I saw was transgressive.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
This podcast episode is brought to you by the word transgressive. Racist, sexist, homophobic, and a little rapey. Yeah, I was some of the stuff I was like, holy moly, this is shocking.
I'll be very interested to see what you pick because I think
classist, a lot of classism as well. That's probably left over from the government.
Yep, 100%.
We are going to be asking you to be irresponsible in your movie watching and check this misogynistic movie out. It's really cool.
We're going to ask you to be irresponsible, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Please be irresponsible in your horror movie watching. If you take anything away from this episode, please be irresponsible.
This is not responsibility. Yeah. All right. So let's jump in. Who wants to start?
I'm kind of curious to see what Mike's got.
Let's do it.
Oh my God. What don't I have? So speaking of homophobic, misogynistic, jingoistic, racist, and a little rapey, this is a film that TV Guide, which we've never really talked about TV Guide, awarded 2 out of 4 stars and called it a slow and lackadaisically plotted, thirsty corpse movie distinguished by terrific music, locations, and genuinely eerie zombies. This is the 1972 horror film The Tombs of the Blind Dead by Armando Osorio, and the original Spanish title was La Noche del Terror Ciego, translated The Night of Blind Terror. This was the first, of course, in the first of 3 sequels he did: Return of the Blind Dead, The Ghost Galleon, and the least horror-sounding amongst the bunch, Night of the Seagulls, which doesn't really sound that bad. But this
sounds gentle.
But it was this film that this was the film that really kickstarted Spanish horror, the Spanish horror boom in the early 1970s. The director Osorio, he was of course obsessed with the Gothic horror film El Monte de las Animas from the story from 1862, and then of course George Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. This involves the legend of an abandoned medieval town of Berzano at the border between Spain and Portugal, and the Knights Templar. They leave their tombs at night and come back as dead revenants. The reanimated corpses are, of course, blind because they had their eyes pecked out by birds while their bodies hanged on rotten gallows.
Those damned seagulls.
Because the Knights of the Templar were involved with Satanism and of course had deserved to have their eyes picked out.
Knights Templars.
Yeah, I know, Knights Templars. But the film basically involves a young couple who sort of turns into a trio, who then turns into a duo, who decide to go up to the town of Berzano, to this beautiful abandoned medieval fortress. The one woman ends up staying because of a tiff with the other two, and she accidentally wakes up the Knights Templar. And she awakes these dead revenants who come after her, and then eventually sort of come after everybody in the film. And as I say, the film is gory, so gory, incredibly gory, incredibly misogynistic, incredibly jingoistic, because the whole thing with the Knights Templar, of course, is like a big commentary on sort of anti-Islamic thinking. And it's a little racist. But if you can get past the homophobia, misogynism, jingoism, racism,
Mike gives it a high review.
I give it a go see this, because this is a film that, like, obviously the Hollywood theater shows on the regular. It's a film that is, I think in the horror canon, largely regarded as one of the greatest from the early 70s, and it is one hell of a film. Now, here's the really funny, interesting thing about it was that some distributors in the United States, when it came out in 1972, they recut it and they re-released the film with the title Revenge from Planet Ape, because this is true. This is true. Yes, they were capitalizing on the success of Planet of the Apes from 1968.
What?
And so there was a prologue that was added into the cut-up version that made this like super dubious connection between Planet of the Apes and Tombs of the Blind Dead. Yeah, true story.
Wow.
Can you imagine if that was done if that was done today? It'd be roughly the equivalent of saying, "Hey, Star Wars is really popular. You know what else is popular? Marvel superhero movies." Yeah, we're just gonna take
We'll
the
just
best.
call it Star Wars.
We're gonna take like a little bit of Star Wars and go, it's basically Star Wars.
Well, there is a, I think, a Turkish Star Wars.
There is the Turkish Star Wars.
I've seen it.
It's just
Bonanners.
ridiculous.
Yeah, bonanners. So if you can get past all of the
Inappropriateness of it all.
the isms I gave you earlier, Tombs of the Blind Dead is a really great film. Armando de Osorio obviously did a ton of horror films late in life, which was basically the late 70s, early 80s. He turned to rated X movies. So if you want to jump into his entire film catalog, that's where you're going to go.
Or enjoy.
Or enjoy. Or not. Your call.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. I also have a very inappropriate film.
Okay,
for a completely different reason.
So actually, you asked what's the theme of Spanish language horror? How about inappropriate?
Transgressive.
This one is inappropriate because Eric, I'm sending a cuddly heart from me to you.
Oh.
Mine is an animated feature called The Unicorn Wars.
Whoa.
It is written and directed by Alberto Vasquez, and here is the summary. For ages, teddy bears have been locked in an ancestral war against their sworn enemy, the unicorns, with the promise that victory will complete the prophecy and usher in a new era. Aggressive, confident teddy bear Bluey and his sensitive, withdrawn brother Tubby could not be more different. As the rigors and humiliation of teddy bear boot camp turn into the psychedelic horrors of a combat tour in the magic forest, their complicated history and increasingly strained relationship will come to determine the fate of the entire war.
I'm in.
It is hilarious, bloody. There is full frontal teddy bear nudity. There is drugs.
Teddy bear nudity.
Yes, there's teddy bear nudity.
I will admit that my teddy bears don't have clothes.
These ones don't either, but they also are anatomically correct teddy bears.
No.
No, they do have little outfits, little helmets, little boots, but they honor pain and cuddles is what is over their military boot camp, and they all send cuddly hearts from me to you to each other because they're the cuddliest but also ruthless killers when it comes to taking down the unicorns. It is so bloody, so gory, and very, very, very inappropriate, but hilarious. And it is in Spanish. It won a Goya, so the Spanish version of the Academy Awards for Best Animated Film. It is also like a comment on the political system in Spain, but like I said, I don't know my Spanish history.
And you said this was from 2022 as well, yeah?
2022, yeah. The Unicorn Wars. You can rent this on Amazon or Apple. Worth your money. I will
Okay.
tell
To
you.
see all the teddy bear genitalia you want.
You don't see too much, like too many times. It's mostly that they're high on drugs in the magic forest.
That forgives everything then. That's fine.
It's bloody. So there's going to be a group of kids or someone, I don't know. No, Watership Down was one of those ones where they were like, no, it's classic. And it just traumatized my generation.
Right.
This one, there's no parent probably after the first 5 minutes who will think it's appropriate for their children. Not for kids. It's not for
Yeah,
kids.
so
Right.
this is not a plug-in, entertain your kids, walk away and do
No.
chores.
Right.
No.
Okay,
All
Eric.
right, Eric, what do you have?
Okay, so I am
Yeah,
going.
beat that.
This is
Yeah.
Beat those two.
Well, I'll
Good.
try. I will try. I don't know that I can. But this one is for our friend Marissa Pona at the Jersey Ghouls, and I have selected Juan of the Dead, which is a
Yes,
Cuban movie, which is a 2011 shot in Havana, and it is a bunch of kind of these local deadbeats who sort of have to handle the zombie apocalypse that comes busting out of a church in Havana, and this is you get Juan Alexis Diaz de Villegas, who he's a middle-aged guy. His daughter has come back from Spain. He's trying to make good with her, but he's just. He and his buddy Lazaro, they just go out sort of fishing poorly out in the Caribbean, and they have a hard lives, but when the zombie outbreak happens, they come up with this wacky scheme of being essentially zombie cleaners who will that just like. I think how are the answer? It's like Juan de los Muertos or something like that. We'll kill your loved ones, and they pick up the phone and they go out there with baseball bats and axes, and it is over the top silly action. There are like backflips and just essentially Cuban foo.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that because it reminded me of some of the like Chinese kung fu movies.
It feels like it has the flavor of a Hong Kong horror movie,
like
or
Shaolin
action.
Soccer or something
Yes.
like that. That's like super absurd,
Yeah.
super heightened
Right.
absurdity.
And there are some inappropriate things where I think that these are macho guy. Well, they're not. They're doofuses, but they also believe in the macho culture.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of ogling of women.
Right,
and
right.
And this one guy likes to masturbate a lot. And so it's like there are some, again, transgressive. I don't know if it's necessarily transgressive, but there's a lot of inappropriate stuff.
Sure.
There's also a cross-dressing guy named Chino and his hulking boyfriend, who they call El Nino, who faints at the sight of blood. But so when they go into a fight, El Nino he puts a blindfold on and he just starts swinging blindly and for killing zombies. And these are classic slow Romero-esque zombies that
Right.
One bite and you're
That's
dead.
what I really loved about this film.
And it's I also love that it is in the Havana ghetto,
Right.
essentially, and that they sort of make a joke of there's the son of the buddy, a guy named California, will go out and when they find tourists, he'll steal the cameras off the tourists who are wandering around, and so it's like, I'm going to be rich. I've got all these cameras off of these zombie tourists. It's they end with a wacky like makeshift flee for Havana for Miami. I'm sorry, on an automobile that they put pontoons on, right? So it's great tongue in cheek humor. It is neat to see actually a Caribbean culture sort of brought to the horror screen.
Right.
And because normally when you think, like, if it's a Cuban movie, it's going to be about Castro
Right.
or, Che Guevara or
because
something.
there's not a lot of them.
There's not, and
There's Zombie,
yeah,
aka Zombie 2,
right, which they
which is all shot in the Caribbean,
right. But this is so there's a scant few,
right?
And I
the
think
Believers.
Cuba even less so. So this is so I think it's a bit it's fantastic that a film studio like Universal would go out and back this.
Yeah.
They weren't the original producers, but they thought we can make something of this thing. And it's a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
anyways, this is the 2011 movie Juan of the Dead.
And the good news is on this one, you can see it almost on any single streaming platform.
Absolutely, it
is
free
all over the place.
If you have Amazon Prime, it's free.
Yep.
So
nice.
Classic kind of. You could make comparisons to its silliness to Return of the Living Dead. And it's stylistically, it takes that kind of silly approach. They don't bother explaining anything, and in fact, the first zombie encounter they kind of shake it off. It's like, let's not talk about this.
Yeah.
They put the spear gun through the guy's eye. Actually, the best moment is when they try and deal with an old a zombie old guy who just passed away. And they shoot him with a harpoon, and it goes through the old man, and then sticks into his surviving wife, and end up killing her. And they're tethered. The husband and wife are tethered together with a harpoon. It's actually funnier than it sounds.
I don't know. That sounds pretty funny.
Sounds pretty funny. And they try and drive a bunch. They at first think that they're vampires, and they try and stick them with a bunch of table legs.
Right.
And they're constantly trying to figure out what are the tropes. And it tells you also that apparently zombie movies have not made it to Cuba as an entertainment source. So they were totally unawares of what you do with a zombie.
Yep. All right.
All the tropes.
I'm taking a big old sea change here to a 2011 Spanish psychological thriller film directed by Jaime Balaguero. This is Sleep Tight, or While You Sleep.
I watched this one.
Yeah, I really like this one.
Thank you, Tubi.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. This is a film that stars Luis Tosar in a chilling sociopath role alongside Marta Iturra. In the film, Luis Tosar plays a guy named Caesar, who is a concierge of an apartment building, and he is truly a sociopath. He is unable to achieve happiness no matter what happens to him, and so the only way he can get any glimmer of happiness is basically torturing the people, the tenants in the building, but not torturing them like literally,
just
like
fucking with them,
like Saw. Yeah, just kind of screwing with them, and then he of course becomes obsessed with Clara, who is Marta Iturra. And I've never quite seen this sort of like stalkery sort of move where he effectively comes into her bedroom every night while she's sleeping and uses chloroform or something else to basically knock her out. And then he sleeps under the bed. It's really...
That's disturbing.
Really terrifying. Yeah. A lot of people have compared this to sort of an old school, like Hitchcockian type suspense. And I think that is a very, very apt description. It does take a decidedly non-Hitchcockian twist at the end, which, if you can imagine,
non-Hitchcockian?
Yes, non-Hitchcockian twist. But if you can imagine a Cesar, the concierge, going into her bedroom every night, it does.
Something's going to happen.
Yes, it has catastrophic effects, but he is so weird and so, but at the same time, he's very disarming because he, in this sort of sociopath role, he doesn't play any high highs or low lows. He's just very mild mannered, and is always willing to pitch in and help the tenants, which is incredibly disarming to them. And I think they all sort of let their guard down. And and Clara is incredibly guilty of that as well in terms of letting her guard down. But holy moly.
What I thought was interesting is you kind of think at the beginning, because you're looking at this building and he's, the concierge / almost like apartment manager. So they'll call him to fix things.
Right.
And lives in the basement.
Right.
So you're thinking like, oh, this is kind of a class thing where he's like, I hate these rich people. But no, he screws with like the cleaners.
Yeah.
And like causes them to lose, like just everybody.
Yeah.
He's horrifying.
Yeah.
This one, it was creepy.
When was this done again?
2011.
Okay.
Sleep Tight. Yeah, I really liked it. I don't know that the director Jaime Balaguerro has done much.
No, he's
else.
Jaime Balaguerro is he did part of the night shift. I think with it was
my IMDb.
Okay.
Mick Garris put together a compilation. And
right.
I think he was one of the directors.
Oh, okay.
I think he did one.
And he did Wreck, Mike.
Oh God, just a little film called Wreck.
Just a little film called Wreck.
A little film.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Called Wreck.
All right.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Okay, yeah. He's got the chops. Okay. He has got
He did
the
Wreck
chops.
and Wreck too.
Interestingly, South Korea, which I've never heard of this exactly, but South Korea did a remake of the film called Door Lock. But instead of telling the story from the point of the view of Cesar, it tells the story from the point of view of Clara.
It also had, if I say it had a Pacific Heights moment, anybody who's seen that little thriller will know what I'm talking about, where I was like, oh God, like,
it's
bugs.
Yeah.
They're bugs. gross. It's a terrifying movie because, again, this could happen to you a lot more than zombies could come after you.
Exactly. All right, Liz, what do you got?
That sounds like a total right up Liz's alley kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it's good. It's
very
good.
disturbing.
Totally worth checking out.
Okay. I am still firmly planted in 2022, and I am staying in Spain. This one takes place in Madrid, and it is The Elderly, directed by Raul Cerezo and Fernando Gonzalez Gomez. And I caught this at Fantastic Fest in 2022 and reviewed it for thescariestthings.com 1T. And here is a summary. After the suicide of his wife, elderly Manuel starts acting very strangely. He becomes obsessed with batteries and electronics and is convinced that voices are speaking to him. Assuming that this is just the signs of dementia due to his age, his son Mario brings his father Manuel to live with him, his teenage daughter Naya, and his new and pregnant wife Lena. Adding to the stress of the combined household, Madrid is experiencing a record-breaking heat wave that has no signs of letting up. The move does nothing to stop Manuel's strange behavior. In fact, he becomes threatening and intense and causes a rift between Lena, who wants him out of the house, and her husband, who wants to take care of his father. As temperatures and tempers come to a head, The Elderly reaches an unexpected, bloody, and horrific conclusion. This is a crazy movie that kind of has the vibes of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, if you ask me, and you were sweating the whole time.
Yeah.
It also has a little like paranormal twist at the end, and it looks great. It has great performances, and it kind of questions how we treat our elderly in our society, as well as I guess in Spain too. Everybody's looking at how they treat their elderly. It's available for streaming all over, different things have it for free, or you can rent it. And I totally think it's worth a watch.
Does it go by any other names, Liz?
Like in Spanish, probably.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Or even some.
I think if you just look for The Elderly, you will find it.
Okay. Yeah, because some of these even.
Veos is how you say elderly.
Viejos.
See?
Yeah. See.
Yeah, you've retained some of your high school.
Sí, señor. Gracias.
There you go. Yeah. Viejos.
Yeah. It's totally worth a watch. Definitely recommend.
All right, Eric, what is up next on your list?
I'm going to a movie from 2020 that actually that I saw at the Portland Horror Film Festival. That was also something that it was actually at the 2019 Portland Horror Film Festival.
Okay. Get back in that Wayback Machine.
And, yeah. and it came at the high recommendation of Joseph.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is in Espanol, Sangre Verdelak, also known as Verdelak Blood, also known now as A Taste of Blood. So this is an Argentinian film. So in addition to things like Aterrados and When Evil Lurks, and what was the Uruguayan
Terrified.
one? Terrified.
Terrified.
Aterrados is Terrified.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was an Uruguayan like theater horror movie that you saw. You remember what?
It was called The Last Matinee.
Yeah, so
which was straight up Giallo.
So with
lots of eye poking.
I think that we talked about Patagonian horror. Actually, El Conde. Out of Chile. That broke big last year. Got an Oscar nomination. Mm-hmm. So this is another example of stylistically. You asked, what does it feel like? Argentina is it's kind of like the upper Midwest of the United States, big windswept plains, right? And lots of, once you get out of Buenos Aires, you got a lot of nothing.
Yep.
And so that is the location for Verdelak Blood, where Aguirre, who's a farmer or a landholder who fled from Europe to Argentina to escape a curse, a Verdelak curse. And this is, if you're familiar with Mario Bava's film Black Sabbath, that's probably the first time that actually the variant of the Verdelak vampire. It's a genealogical heritage of vampires. It gets passed down at a certain age. You turn into a vampire. Right. And or that there's these traditions and lineages that need to be followed. And so he took his family and fled as far away from the curse as he could, and he thought he had gotten away, but a strange man arrives in town, and he is clearly looking to pass along the bloody traditions of the Verdelak vampires, and the family begins to batten down the hatches. The Aguirre heads out to try and he gets his rifle, and he's going to go deal with the situation. And he tells the kids, it's like, if I'm not back by sunrise, don't trust me, kill me. And the kids, they're in their late teens, early 20s, and they go, "No, Papa, don't go." And he goes, "No, I've got to do this. This is something. I'm doing it for you guys." And he's got a rebel daughter who wants to get out of, she doesn't like the agrarian life. She wants a big life in the big city. She's going to head to Buenos Aires with her boyfriend, and but instead they find out that as certain members of the family start showing signs that they have to deal internally with putting them down or fleeing from the curse, however they want to do it. But that it's the curse. Curses are hard to get rid of. Right? You don't just kind of go.
There is that.
It's like you can delay it, but eventually it'll come find you, and that is the case in this movie. And naturally, what happens is Aguirre comes back, and he goes, "I'm fine, let me in the house." It's like, "No, we can't let you in the house." And he goes, "I must come in." And it's like, "No, you must be a vampire now because the sun's coming up." And because it was like right before dawn, right? The father arrives at dawn, and so it turns the family against itself, against the sympathy for the loving, because he's been a good father, right? But at a certain point, it's like he told us not to let him in the house, and again, there's another vampire trope, right? Right. Invitations and whatnot. It's a beautiful, quiet, dark, sad vampire movie. Yeah. And so this is sort of counter programming to Juan of the Dead. Sure. Right. But I think it also, what it begins to show is the maturity of Argentinian horror. As if you didn't think that Terrified and When Evil Lurks did it for you, Verdelak Blood is another. This is the director is Santiago Fernandez Calvete, and I look forward to seeing what he does next. I think this was it's a bit of a quiet. It's it's a somber vampire movie. It's not like Renfield. It's not
right.
Or Near Dark or something like this. Is vampire movies comes in all kinds of stripes, and this one is a somber take on and the vampires look great.
Yeah,
and I think this was one of the better movies that came out of the Portland Horror Film Festival that year.
Don't like vampires, don't like period pieces, but this one is good.
Yeah.
It's a really good film.
Mike keeps on saying that, but I think he just...
I know.
I know.
He keeps adding vampire movies to it. You know what? You like vampire movies that are not that are in Spanish.
So you like...
Maybe that's it, yes.
You hate vampire movies like I hate cannibal movies. But
there you go,
But I have a few cannibal movies that are actually on my favorite movie list. So, okay, so that's my second movie.
All right. This film is the pure definition of transgressive. There was, in this film, a murder on a waterbed, which I have never, ever seen before.
So this is a 1970s movie then, or an 80s movie?
1982.
Okay.
There is lots of nudity, and kind of weird nudity. There is a killing...
Wait, what do you mean weird
Teddy
nudity?
bear nudity?
Not teddy bear nudity. There is a killing in the first 3 minutes where a young boy takes an axe to his mom's head. In the first 3 minutes of the film, there is a professional tennis player / cop,
Jimmy
and
Connors.
there is a kid
Officer Jimmy Connors.
who works on the campus, who also they decide to enlist as a cop. This, of course, is the 1982 Spanish-American slasher film directed by Juan Picure Simon, also known as Pieces. This, of course, has Christopher George, who, if you know Christopher George, you know Grizzly, you know City of the Living Dead, you know Graduation Day, you know Mortuary, and it also has Linda Day George, which is his wife. He in this film plays Christopher George plays the detective investigating all these campus murders, and his wife plays the professional tennis player / cop, who they enlist to go to the campus to also help out investigate the murders on campus. The film follows an unknown assailant killing female students at a college town in Boston. This is all in Spain. It is clearly in Spain, but throughout the film, it's just like they have all these funny little ploys to make you think we're in America. There's like pictures of Ronald Reagan. There's like at one point they're eating Wendy's. There's beer everywhere. There's skateboarding. It's this super broad interpretation of America, but it is funny as hell. But this film is, man, it is super gory. And while it wasn't prosecuted for obscenity, the film was seized and confiscated in the UK under Section 3 of the Obscene Publications Act of 1959, also known as a video nasty. Yeah, it's got a little bit of Herschel Gordon Lewis. Certainly, it's got a little Giallo. If you're looking for a fun time to have with your buddies, like cracking open a 6-pack of beer and watching this film, this is the film, because it is. You can have your own riff tracks commentary going the whole time, and you won't lose anything watching this film. It's just a wonderful, wonderful throwback, and it's so funny too that this is a film that's like it's a Spanish film that purports to be in America, and it is clearly not American. All the cars they're driving are like Peugeots and Spanish cars, and the architecture is clearly Spanish, and they are clearly in Spain. But it's Ronald Reagan's America.
There you go.
Pieces you can watch on many of the streaming services. I think I watched it on Tubi. It's easy to get Blu-ray copies of Pieces. It's available in wide release everywhere, even though those folks, our friends in the UK, decided to try to ban it in 1982. They were not successful. So yeah, go check this out. It has a cult following. Obviously, this is a drive-in favorite. They show this on the regular at the Hollywood Theater as
Which
well.
is not a drive-in.
Which is not a drive-in, but they do show it on. They do show it on a regular basis. I think it usually makes its way into the all-night horror marathon they do in the fall each year. So yes, Pieces, also known as The Night Has 1,000 Screams. All right, back over to you, Liz.
All right. That sounded fun. Well, my movie's not. Mine is the 2022 super bummer of a film written and directed by Carlotta Pareda, and it is Cerdita, Piggy.
Yeah.
This was a festival darling, and if you Google the poster, you will recognize it. It's available streaming everywhere. And here is our plot summary from Moreno Films, the releaser or the production company for the film. Not everyone loves summertime. For Sarah, it just means dealing with a constant barrage of mockery, judgment, and abuse from the other girls in her village. But today is different. A mysterious, unknown man arrives in the village and kidnaps her tormentors. Someone has finally stood up for her, and Sarah sees it all. The blood, the knife, the mud, and the van in which he's taken them. But the unknown man has seen her, and they enter into a wordless pact that neither will betray. She's an accomplice now. And as a series of crimes rock the village, an investigation soon begins. Will she turn on the tormentor? This is a dark, dark, dark film. It's really about bullying. She is mercilessly bullied by these girls because, as you would guess from the title, it goes twofold. She's fat, and she also is the daughter of like the local butcher. So she's always working in the shop and not out, like riding Vespas and eating ice creams with the other girls in the village and the boys. She's not like one of the pretty girls. So they just mercilessly bully her until the killer takes them. And she has to decide if she is going to free them or, let him torture and kill these quote unquote friends, but people she knows and grew up with and goes to school with. So it's super dark, super bloody. It's almost like kind of like Hostel towards the end.
Yeah. Totally.
But it's worth seeing. It is based on a short film of the same name, which I have not seen yet. I've only seen the feature, and I mean, enjoyable is not the word for it, but it's very well done, and it's a film that should be seen.
Yeah.
But
I think
dark.
Didn't we during this was we were still in the pandemic. I think this came up at South by Southwest. Is that right? Is that where I saw it?
It came out at South by Southwest, and then it also came to Overlook.
Yep.
Okay.
So it came to Overlook the year we were all together. Yeah,
okay.
2022.
Okay, yeah. Maybe that's where I saw it.
Yeah.
I intend to see it. I haven't gotten to it.
Come on, Eric.
You got to be in the right mood. You're never just going to be like, let's pop this bullying movie up. It has a bit of a satisfying ending, I think. But it is just, it's cringy watching her be bullied. And even she's embarrassed by her parents. And, it's just a teenage girl going through everything that teenage girls go through. And the only person who stands up for her is a psychotic killer. And she has to kind of come to terms with that. And how is she going to deal with it?
I assume that you find a rooting interest in her. She is your...
Oh, for sure.
She's
your protagonist through and through.
Yeah. So, but you go through the same kind of, that you can follow her thought processes because, part of it is it's like, these kids are getting what they deserve. Or do they?
Right.
But is this what they deserve? So
how much punishment is too punishment?
It's very good.
Too much.
Yeah. All right, Eric, what is the last Spanish language horror film or a film from Spain of the night?
Well, there were a bunch of films that I could have picked through, but I went through with one of my favorite directors, Alex de la Iglesias. We talked about circus horror before, and I talked about The Last Circus.
Oh, yeah, right.
And also this was a film that actually, when we first started up the Scariest Things, Matt Howell cued me in on a movie called Witching and Bitching. I also talked about this when we did our witches episode.
I honestly thought you were going to
say
say Who Can Kill a Child, which is also a Spanish film.
Oh, okay.
Which is a film that Matt Howell hit me to.
Yeah, so
Who Can Kill a Child.
So Matt, one of our patrons, thank you very much, Matt. Don't if you're interested, pitch in because we could use the help. That's enough of the pitch. But pitching, witching, and bitching. This is pure silliness. This takes place in Madrid, where there's an armed robbery with a bunch of masked men and a kid, and they dress as buskers and street performers, and they try and hold up the gold exchange, and they blow it. They manage to hightail it out of there with the cops on their trail, and they hijack a taxi cab, and they head for the hills. Unfortunately, they head in the wrong direction. They head for the notorious village of Zugarramurdi, which is actually the name of this in Spanish, and pardon me for if I butcher this, but Las Brujas de Zugarramurdi. That is actually how the Spanish language, if you're looking it up for there, and it's actually Basque.
Okay.
I think there's a Barcelona connection to this production. Although the movie's based in Madrid,
right? What's that translate to roughly? Do you know?
The Witches of Zugarramurdi.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah.
Brujas.
Yeah.
So. Anyhow, so these three inept bank robbers and a kid head into witch country, where there is a coven gathering, a major coven gathering for a major sacrifice, and they're looking for men. And these guys are suckers, right? They get lured in by maybe the sexiest woman on the big screen, Carolina Bang, who also happens to be the wife of the director, Alexander de la Iglesias. She's in a lot of the movies that he does. It kind of reminds. It's not dissimilar to Resident Evil with Wes or Tom Anderson, and who's the gorgeous woman that's always in those movies.
Mila Jovovich?
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah.
Same kind of a thing, right? So she
has nothing to do with Wes Anderson.
No, but not Wes Anderson. It's
the other Anderson.
Thomas Paul Anderson.
Paul Thomas.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an Anderson.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Tell
that to Wes.
Not quite.
Tell that to Pamela.
So anyhow, so they get lured in, and they all of a sudden they are going to be the food for the witches for their great ceremony, and it's full of wacky antics. The witches are wonderful, the robbers are wonderful, the cops are fun. It is kind of it's got slapstick comedy with a fair bit of gore,
right?
And just kind of bunch of cackling witches, and it's this fabled town that just sort of shuts down for a while the witches take control. The Iglesias has a wonderful camera eye. He does some really wonderful sort of long shots, and the sets are spectacular. It's fun. It's pure silliness and fun. There's a lot of energy in the bank. If you like bank heist movies, it's got a great bank heist to open it up with, and then the mad chase afterwards, and then the capture of them, and then and there's this gigantic cavern there's a castle and a cavern, and so it plays on many levels. It's an absolutely ridiculous title, but you won't forget it if you see it on the shelves. Unlike some movies where they've got these generic things, like I think even when like movies like When Evil Lurks, it's like there's a bunch of sort of movies or You'll Never Be Alone, or that they kind of speak to the movie, but they're a little bit convoluted. And sometimes you forget what the name of the movie is. You won't forget Witching and Bitching. It's just a goofy name, and it's a goofy movie. And it's very light horror, but
Yeah.
there's plenty of bloodshed. They do feast on. I think the cab driver gets it really badly. He's this pudgy guy, and they just he gets it bad. But each one of the guys, it's like they all fall in love, of course, with the beautiful witch,
Right.
And they try and convince her to be on their side and let us go.
Yeah.
And
this one too is streaming all over the place.
Yes, it is easy to find. I think I think of the movies that I picked, I think Vertilac Blood may be the trickiest one to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's on Tubi.
Yeah.
But none of these are particularly difficult to get. And Mike, you've got some real deep cut stuff.
Sure. But also easy to find.
Yeah.
I'm proud of us for not talking about Wreck or all of David Rugna's movies or all the
I know.
Guillermo del Toro movies.
Yeah.
We really branched out. And
Heck yeah.
I need to just give 2 honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Please do.
Number 1, I didn't pick because I thought someone would pick it, is 32 Malasana Street. It was released in
so good.
2020. It was on my top 10, and
Yep.
Joseph hipped us to that and
Yep.
reviewed that. And then probably my favorite, but it is more horror adjacent, is The Skin I Live In by Pedro Almodovar.
Yep.
Talk about chilling. I didn't want to talk about it because we've talked about it before, and it's adjacent.
Yep.
But it's very triggering.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. So keep in with theme with our other movies. Yeah.
If I'm throwing a few out there, The Platform.
Yeah.
Which was
yes, for sure.
a brilliant thing. That's pretty easy to find.
Showed
that's
up
the
in
starvation horror.
Showed up in food horror.
Yeah.
Starvation horror is not a thing. Food horror is.
No food horror.
The Orphanage.
Yeah. Also great.
And
that showed up in kid horror.
Kid horror.
Yeah. I picked that one a million years ago.
Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Yep.
Mexican horror.
Adjacent.
Adjacent dark
Magical
fantasy.
realism, dark fantasy. Yeah.
Veronika, which is which is nunsploitation horror.
Yep.
And Sister Death that we just talked about on the Thingy Awards for Best Poster and
Hermana Muerte.
foreign film.
God, that's a great poster.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. What? So, Liz, why don't you go down your list of films, Spanish or Spanish language films that you hipped us to tonight?
All of mine come from 2022 and the country of Spain. I have Unicorn Wars, The Elderly, and Cerdita, Piggy. Yeah, you got to see all of them.
And Eric.
But Unicorn Wars first.
So I started out with Juana the Dead from Cuba, 2011, and then I did Vertilac Blood. Also, you might be able to find it under A Taste of Blood. That was done in 2020. And then I've finished off with Witching and Bitching, the silly movie from Alex de la Iglesias.
I had 1972's Tombs of the Blind Dead, 2011's Sleep Tight, and 1982's Pieces. And I'm gonna take us out with the tagline from Pieces, the poster for Pieces. You don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre.
Oh yeah!
Yes!
Pieces. It's exactly what you think it is.
That may be the best tagline ever written. Wow.